Ever feel like the crypto world is just speaking a completely different language?
Ah, yeah. It definitely can feel that way sometimes, like this huge, complex maze.
Exactly. Well, today we're going to try and translate one of the key dialects for you. We're diving into Cardano.
That's right. We'll be digging into what Cardano, or ADA, is really all about.
And we've looked at a few different angles, some articles explaining it, plus info straight from the source, cardano.org.
Yeah, trying to get both the overview and, the project's own take on things.
So think of this as your quick guide. Our mission today really is to pull out the core essence of Cardano.
Figure out how it works.
And crucially, how it's different, especially compared to, say, the big one, Bitcoin.
Right. By the end, you should have a pretty solid grasp of what makes Cardano tick and what it's trying to achieve.
Okay, let's jump in. Cardano's foundation, it's a proof-of-stake blockchain.
Correct. That's the first big thing to understand. It's designed for efficiency right from the get-go, especially when you compare it to older proof-of-work systems.
Proof of stake. Okay, let's unpack that a bit. So instead of massive computer farms solving puzzles.
Exactly. No massive energy drain like Bitcoin mining. With proof of stake, people use the ADA they already hold.
ADA being the Cardano cryptocurrency.
Right. They stake it, basically locking it up temporarily to help validate transactions and secure the network. It's much greener.
And more accessible, presumably.
Generally, yes. But Cardano's ambition goes beyond just efficient transactions. It aims to be a platform.
For dApps, decentralized applications.
Yeah, apps not controlled by a single entity. Cardano's built to handle multiple types of digital assets and use smart contracts.
Smart contracts, those self-executing code agreements.
Precisely. Verifiable ones. And interestingly, the plan is for those who stake ADA to eventually govern the network too.
Governance. We'll come back to that. But where did Cardano even come from? It wasn't one of the originals.
No, it's a bit newer. Founded back in 2015 by Charles Hoskinson.
Hoskinson, wasn't he involved with Ethereum?
He was, one of the co-founders actually. He left Ethereum, reportedly due to disagreements over its direction, particularly around its nonprofit status versus becoming a for-profit entity.
Ah, okay, so Cardano emerged from that. When did it launch?
It officially launched in 2017, so you see it was born from experience, maybe trying to address perceived shortcomings or different philosophies compared to Ethereum.
And they position themselves quite deliberately, don't they? Like third generation.
They do. The idea is, Bitcoin was maybe generation 1 digital cash.
Right, peer-to-peer payment.
Ethereum, generation 2, bringing in smart contracts and programmability.
Okay.
And Cardano sees itself as building on that. Third generation, aiming for better scalability, sustainability, interoperability, the whole package.
And they have some pretty lofty goals tied to that, I read. Something about banking.
Yeah, a big one is aiming to provide financial services banking, essentially to the billions of people worldwide who don't have access to traditional banks, the unbanked.
That's ambitious. Shows they're thinking beyond just crypto trading.
Definitely aiming for real-world impact. It's baked into their vision.
And the name? ADA. That's got a story too, right?
It does. It's named after Augusta Ada King, Countess of Lovelace.
Ada Lovelace, often called the first computer programmer.
That's the one. A nice nod to the history of computing and logic, which fits well with their research-heavy approach.
It's a cool detail. Okay, so back to the tech. This proof-of-stake system, they call it Ouroboros.
Yes, Ouroboros. And it's not just any POS protocol. This is where their emphasis on research really shows.
How so? What makes Ouroboros stand out?
Well, the big claim to fame is that it was the first blockchain protocol based on peer-reviewed academic research.
Peer-reviewed?
Meaning experts in cryptography and computer science, people not directly involved in building it, rigorously analyzed the design, the math behind it, looking for flaws before it was implemented.
Okay, so they tried to prove it was secure on paper first.
Exactly. Mathematically proven security, or at least verifiably secure based on certain assumptions. It gives a higher degree of confidence than just, launching something and hoping for the best.
That sounds thorough, especially for crypto.
It's a core part of their philosophy, this scientific, evidence-based approach.
So how does Ouroboros actually work? In simple terms, people stake their ADA.
Right. Time is divided into epochs and slots. In each slot, Ouroboros randomly selects slot leaders based on how much ADA they've staked.
More ADA means a higher chance of being picked.
Essentially, yes. These leaders are responsible for creating the next block of transactions and adding it to the chain.
And they get rewarded for doing this.
Correct. They receive rewards in ADA for successfully validating transactions and extending the blockchain. It incentivizes participation and honesty.
So it combines that academic rigor with crypto economic incentives.
Precisely. And going back to the Bitcoin comparison, the energy difference is huge.
Right. PoW mining is notorious for its energy consumption. Ouroboros avoids that.
Completely avoids the intensive computation aspect. Staking ADA uses vastly less energy. It's a major selling point for them, sustainability.
And accessibility, too. You mentioned earlier it's easier for average users.
Yeah, generally. You don't need specialized, expensive, power-hungry mining rigs like with Bitcoin. You can often stake directly from a compatible software wallet on your computer, maybe even a phone app.
So, lower barrier to entry for participating in network security.
That's the idea. Democratizing participation, in a way.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, Cardano hasn't stood still. It's gone through major upgrades called hard forks.
Yes, several important ones. These aren't necessarily contentious splits like in some other chains, but planned upgrades to the protocol.
Got it. Can you walk us through the key ones, like Shelley?
Shelley was a big one. That was the main transition to make the network more decentralized. It activated the Ouroboros POS system fully, moving block production away from a small group to the wider community of stake pool operators.
So Shelley was about decentralization through POS. What came next?
Alonzo, yes, around 2021. This was arguably the most anticipated upgrade because it finally brought smart contract functionality to Cardano's mainnet.
So that's when they could start supporting dApps, NFTs, DeFi, all that stuff.
Exactly. Before Alonzo, Cardano was primarily just focused on ADA transactions. Alonzo opened the door for developers to actually build things on Cardano, though it did launch on the testnet first for stability checks.
Right, testing first. Always good. So Alonzo enabled smart contracts. What about Vassal?
Vassal came later and was focused on improving performance and scalability, especially for those smart contracts and apps.
Making things run faster and smoother.
Basically, yes. Things like increasing the block size, optimizing how transactions are processed, adding new capabilities to Plutus, their smart contract language, making it more efficient for developers.
Okay, scaling focus. And there was another recent one, Valentine.
Yeah, Valentine, February 2023. That one aimed at improving cross-chain capabilities.
Meaning interacting with other blockchains.
Yes, making it easier to build applications that can work across different networks and supporting other cryptographic standards. Enhancing interoperability.
So each fork built on the last. Decentralization, then smart contracts, then scaling, then interoperability. A logical progression.
Seems that way. A very planned, staged rollout.
Now, we keep mentioning Ethereum. Both are platforms for dApps, use smart contracts, eventually both moving to POS.
Well, Ethereum has completed its merge to POS now, yes.
Yeah.
So there are similarities in the goals.
But Cardano got smart contracts much later, right? Alonzo was 2021. Ethereum had them for years.
That's the key difference in their history, absolutely. Ethereum had a huge head start in building its dApp ecosystem because it had smart contracts much earlier.
Did that put Cardano at a disadvantage?
You could argue it did in terms of initial adoption and developer momentum, but Cardano's argument would be that their methodical, research-first approach ensured their smart contract platform, Plutus, was more secure and robust from the outset, even if it took longer.
So a trade-off, speed versus maybe foundational rigor.
Perhaps. It highlights different development philosophies. Ethereum was maybe more build fast and iterate, while Cardano was measure twice, cut once, so to speak.
Okay, now let's really zero in on Cardano versus Bitcoin. We've done POS versus PoW, energy, but their fundamental purpose seems different from day one.
Absolutely, a fundamental difference. Bitcoin, as Satoshi Nakamoto outlined it, was designed primarily as a peer-to-peer electronic cash system.
Digital gold, decentralized money.
Right. Its core focus was, and largely remains, payments and store of value. Cardano was conceived much more broadly.
As more of a platform.
Exactly, an ecosystem from the start, designed to support not just its native token ADA, but potentially thousands of other tokens, complex dApps, verifiable identity solutions, supply chain tracking, a whole range of applications on a scalable blockchain.
So Bitcoin-focused payment system, Cardano general-purpose blockchain ecosystem.
That's a good way to summarize the core design difference. And the POS versus PoW choice flows directly from those different goals, impacting energy use and how people participate.
That distinction is really clear now. Okay, looking ahead. Cardano has this roadmap structured in eras named after famous figures.
Yes, they do. Byron was the foundation. Shelley brought decentralization. Gauguin introduced smart contracts. Those are largely complete.
So where are they now?
Currently, they're in the Basho era. Basho is all about scaling and optimization.
Making the network handle more traffic more efficiently.
Precisely. Improving transaction throughput, network performance, preparing it for mass adoption, basically. And the expectation as of early 2024 is that they're gearing up for the next final era.
Which is Voltaire.
Voltaire. This is the governance era.
Governance, bringing power to the ADA holders.
That's the vision. Voltaire is planned to introduce on-chain voting systems and a treasury system.
A treasury, like a pool of funds.
Yes, funded potentially by a small portion of transaction fees or block rewards. ADA holders would then be able to vote on proposals for how to spend those funds, funding development projects, marketing, ecosystem initiatives.
So decisions about Cardano's future development and funding would be made by the community through voting.
That's the goal of Voltaire, to make Cardano a fully decentralized, self-sustaining system, governed by its users via smart contracts and system improvements.
That sounds like true decentralization if they can pull it off.
It's definitely the end game outlined in their roadmap.
Now, the crypto space is, well, notoriously unpredictable. Predicting the future is impossible. But based on everything, what's the general the outlook for Cardano?
Well, yeah, guarantees are impossible in tech, especially crypto. But Cardano is still actively developed. They have this clear roadmap that keep hitting milestones with these hard forks.
Suggests ongoing commitment, at least.
It suggests continued potential, certainly in the near to medium term. It's not an abandoned project by any means.
Yeah.
And it did have significant market interest historically.
Right, you mentioned the all-time high.
Yeah, ADA hit around $3.16 back in September 2021. Again, past price isn't future prediction, but it shows there was, and potentially still is, significant belief in the project's vision.
So the key is whether they can deliver on Basho scaling, and especially on the Voltaire governance vision.
Absolutely. Execution on scaling, DApp adoption, and realizing that decentralized governance model will be critical for its long-term relevance and success.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what's the big picture? What's the ultimate Cardano dream?
I think the core vision, repeated often, is to be this fully decentralized platform governed by its community with voting and treasury managed on-chain.
And the mission statement, like on their website.
It's pretty broad, something like making the world work better for all. They see Cardano as providing a secure, transparent, sustainable foundation for all sorts of applications that can improve global systems.
Finance, identity, supply chains.
You name it. They aim to be the underlying infrastructure for a more equitable and efficient future powered by blockchain.
Okay, so let's boil this down for everyone listening. Key takeaways on Cardano.
It's proof of stake. Big emphasis on research, peer review, think Ouroboros.
Much more energy efficient than Bitcoin, more accessible staking.
Right. Evolved through stages, Shelley for decentralization, Alonzo for smart contracts, now Basho for scaling.
And heading towards Voltaire for full decentralized governance.
There's a long-term vision of being a foundational platform for global applications.
And why does this matter to you, listening? Why should you care about understanding Cardano?
Well, it really highlights the diversity within crypto. It shows not all blockchains are the same.
Different philosophies, different approaches.
Exactly. Comparing Bitcoin's initial focus on payments with Cardano's broader platform ambitions, understanding POS versus POW, it gives you a much richer picture of this whole space.
Helps you see the different ways people are trying to solve problems like efficiency, scaling, governance using this technology.
Right. It's crucial for making sense of the landscape beyond just the price tickers.
Okay, so here's a final thought to chew on. Cardano has staked, no pun intended, its reputation on this very methodical, scientific, peer-reviewed approach.
Yeah, very deliberate.
In this super fast-moving tech world, is that slow and steady, research-first approach a winning strategy long-term? Does that rigor give it an edge?
Or could being more agile, maybe taking more risks but moving faster, be more important in the end?
Right. Is meticulous planning better than rapid adaptation in blockchain? Or maybe thinking about Voltaire? If they achieve that decentralized governance, how might that truly empower users in ways we haven't really seen fully realized yet?
Yeah, what does truly community-led evolution look like for a major blockchain? Lots to think about there.
Definitely something to ponder as you keep exploring this space.